Okay, there he is. That is King Louis the 14th of France. And look at his outfit. Isn't he glamorous? He's so glamorous. The French were all about fabrics and appearances. Everything was so overwhelming, opulent and lush. Look at all the fabric. Um, but he was a quite powerful king, and he ruled France from 1643 until he died in 1715. And does this symbol look a little familiar to you? Maybe we'll find out more about that later. Okay. All right. Continuing on, just taking a look at our timeline, we just left the Spanish explorers that were the late 1400s up into the mid 1500s. Now we're into the 1600s. So we're moving on up the timeline towards where we are today in 2020. But this is when the French come to our coastlines, and right behind them will be the British. Because once the Spanish opened the doors, all the other countries of Europe started wanting in on the deal. They wanted a part of this new land. So here we go. Um, the new vocabulary is, of course, in Quizlet, and it is the French explorers' vocabulary. And here are the terms that we're going to be discussing. Number one, a dauphin. That's a term for a French prince who will inherit the throne. So, what if a king had four sons? All four of them would be princes, but only the oldest one would get to be the king when this one dies. So he was called the dauphin. Now, that is not the same as a dolphin. This is the animal that lives in the water, the dolphin. That's not what we're saying. Look at the difference in the spelling, dolphin and dolphin. So it's not the dolphin, it is dolphin. Okay. A colony, a large area of land in one country that is owned by another country. A large area of land that's sitting over in a country that is not owned by it. It's owned by another country. That is a colony. And then inside of that land, if there's a smaller little community, that would be a settlement inside the colony. Okay. And we've heard the word and seen it around our school a lot, the word entrepreneur. That's a person who takes a risk of starting a new business. Okay. Taking on a new business. That would be an entrepreneur. And you're going to learn about a lot of people who take risks for business purposes when we talk about the colony of Jamestown. So we'll get to that too. A pilgrim, perfect timing. We're getting ready for Thanksgiving. A pilgrim is a person who travels for religious reasons. The pilgrims that came over on the Mayflower didn't come here for business reasons. They came here for religious reasons, and we're going to learn about them. Cassette. If you were alive back in the 80s when I was a teenager, you would know what a cassette is, but it's not the same. A cassette is just a French term for a small box or package. We had cassettes that played music back in the 80s, but there were girls that came from France over to the new colony, and all they were allowed to carry was a small box. And so those girls were known as the cassette girls because that's all they were allowed to carry with those small boxes. And then the fleur de lis. We've seen it. We know about that. It's been all around. It's around our Mardi Gras football teams. Anybody recognize that for the Saints, the New Orleans Saints? Okay, that's called the fleur de lis. That is French for a three-petal lily shape, and it's the symbol of the French royal family. And if you look over here on Louis the 14th's opulent velvet robe that's lined with ermine fur. That's like from an animal. It's white with little black specks. But if you notice on that thick velvet, it's got the little fleur de lis symbol all over it. And so that symbol made its way over here to America with the French, the fleur de lis. Okay. And the first explorer that we're going to learn about is Rene Robert Cavelier de La Salle. We're just going to know him as La Salle. Okay. Unlike the Spanish explorers who began their expeditions up from the south. If you look at the orange lines, weren't they down in the south and then up along in the west later on? But they came up into Alabama kind of from the south. Well, the French were different. Follow the green line. If you notice in our box here, okay, in our little legend box, the French line is the green line. So here we go. There we've got um, the green line. And where are they coming from? They're coming from the north. And there's LaSalle's line. He came from the north and he went down, 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 down until he discovered something. He discovered that this Mississippi River basically divided this land right there, just divided it. It was a waterway that made its way from top to bottom and that it opened into the Gulf of Mexico. That was a huge discovery, because from that point on, these other countries are wanting to get over here and control that waterway. They want to control that waterway because it is going to be an excellent way to get to travel and trade, to take goods up and down this new land. So that Mississippi River became something to fight for. And so here are our notes. We're going to take notes on this screen right here. You copy everything you see in this box, and we will pause the video for you to do that. Okay, moving on. Mobile becoming a settlement. Well, when did the French settle Mobile? Because they did. So we're going to talk about 1702 being the year that Mobile was founded. In 1682, King Louis decided that he wanted a colony over here established in his name. And it was going to be named La Louisiane. If you notice, Louis is the first part of that, La Louisiane. And he sent two brothers over here. Okay. Well, but before we get to that, he wanted his new capital of this La Louisiane to be exactly 27 miles up from where we are today. And that's called 27 Mile Bluff. It's overlooking a river. And he wanted it here for a very good reason. He said, if I put it there, then that would be just far enough away from the Mississippi River to prevent the English and Spanish from controlling it. So I put some arrows here to mark where the Mississippi River begins down in New Orleans. Before New Orleans was not there yet. It was just a river. Okay, going all the way up, and there you see. So if he could put a fort here, then if the Spanish or the English were coming this way, they would be far enough away from the Mississippi River that they can provide some protection, and they can stop those countries from getting over there. So that's called the 27 Mile Bluff, and that was the original Mobile. But things happened. Okay, so go ahead and get these notes down, and we'll stop the video before moving on. Okay. As you can see here, this is the sign that is at that point today at 27 Mile Bluff. You can go up there and you can see it today. This is Mobile. Here we are. Okay, notice here's our bay, our big, beautiful bay, Mobile Bay. There's Mobile. And if you follow the highway up, you go up past Saraland and Satsuma and Creola, Axis, Alabama, and you go a little bit further, this is where 27 Mile Bluff is located, and that is where that original fort was. So some things happened there that made it stop being there. So we're going to talk about that. Now, there's two brothers that King Louis sent. He sent two brothers. We're going to know them as Iberville and his brother Bienville. So Iberville and Bienville. They were known as the Lemoyne brothers. That was their actual name. I'm not sure how French names work correctly, but this is from, well, the Lemoyne would be their last name. Okay, so he was Pierre Lemoyne, and then his brother was Baptiste Lemoyne. But we're going to know them as Iberville and Bienville because those were their official titles. So this brother right here is Iberville. He was the one that was in charge. And so King Louis sent him. He was a French Navy officer. He was a war hero, an explorer. And King Louis wanted him to be the founder of the new colony that would be called La Louisiane in the king's name. And he told him to take along his more adventurous 17-year-old brother, Bienville, to actually stay behind and create the settlements. So Bienville, I mean, Iberville would be the boss, but Bienville would be the one that would um, get in the dirt and visit with the people, the Indians, and try to make settlements there. And that job was not easy considering that the Spanish had been so cruel to the Indians. But let's see how Bienville gets along with them, because he does. He does get along with them. Let's take these notes down, and then we will continue in just a moment. Okay, here's more about Bienville. Notice that this picture was taken at our Fort Conde here in Mobile. Okay, and here is this portrait of Bienville. He's always the one with the shorter wig, and those were wigs. They didn't really have hair like that. Those were wigs. But he was left behind to create the settlements, and he created the settlement of Mobile at the 27-mile bluff. And he became a very good friend to the Native American Indians. He even took up tattooing his body like they did. And he did not try to take from them. He tried to work with them. But letting them teach them farming and hunting practices, they did exchanges. They taught the French how to hunt for animal hides to make nice furs, and those furs were needed back in France to keep warm. So they were highly prized. So together, they're teaching and learning from each other. He basically helped the Native Americans go from being farmers and hunters to being businessmen. He hired the Indians to hunt the animals and bring back the furs, and then he would trade for those. And so that was it was a business relationship between him and the Indians. And so by staying here, um, he created a situation that was very good with the Native American Indians. So I kind of gave it away. I had to stop and think. Why do you think the Native Americans accepted the French when the Spanish had been so cruel? Do you remember what happened with the French? I mean, the Spanish, they weren't they weren't so good to them. So the French are getting along. Next one, and here's Bienville again. And if you have ever been downtown, you might have recognized this beautiful fountain in this park, and the name of the park is Bienville Square, and it's named for him. So anytime you see the word Bienville in Mobile or anywhere, even over in New Orleans, that's because of this man right here. And he went on after he settled Mobile. He then went on and settled the city of New Orleans later after us. So we are much an older city than New Orleans is. People don't realize that. But floods forced Bienville to move the settlers down to where we are now, and it became the first European settlement in Alabama. So we're the oldest city in this region. So Bienville would then go on to New Orleans in 1718. So we were 1702 to 1704, and then New Orleans was founded in 1718. But this is Bienville, and he's responsible for Mobile and New Orleans and other communities. And we're going to stop there. We'll learn about Henry de Tonti tomorrow. He was their helper, but we'll learn about him tomorrow.